By the end of this video, you're going to have your own AI RAG agent that is able to answer any questions or work based off any information that we're going to pre-load into it. You're not going to need to write any single line of code, and I'll do my best to explain this as easy as possible, as much as I can. My name is Anna. I'm building reliable AI automations for sales business coaches and explaining it to everyone. So let's not waste any more time here and get straight into it. So I'm building today's RAG agent by actually recreating a dummy business sales coach by loading all of his knowledge database into our RAG agent, plus loading his client's info. So anytime our client asks our agent a question, those agent answers like those coach would answer. So guys, before we actually start building it inside of our n8n platform, let me first touch on some theory about RAG, what it does and how it actually works. So I guess you guys sometimes in your life maybe heard about RAG, retrieval augmented generation, but you maybe not completely understanding what it does and what is its main function. So to put in it as easy as I can, RAG is just given an ability to look up some information. For example, like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude, they both have an ability to look up information online. They both have an ability to do a web research when they need some additional information to give us a more detailed answer, for example, right? We're given the same ability to our agent, but we're loading our own information in a specific amount and in a specific way. So now, let's take a look at what we're going to build today, and it's going to be looking somewhat like this. We're also going to build our actual AI agent that can interact with this part, but what we're going to do is first download our info. So we have a document that is saved inside of our Google Drive. So the first thing we're going to do is download our info from those Google Drive. Then we're going to break it into pieces. So at first, our document, it looks somewhat like this. There's a lot of text here, just a bunch of text, right? And we needed to piece it out into small chunks. I think that the simple size, the average size of it is 1000 characters with 200 overlap. I'm not sure about it, but once we have it chunked into small pieces, we then turn it into our vector codes. We embed it. And so it's just those string of numbers that we can actually turn our text into. And so once we turn it into our vector codes, we sort it out and store inside of our Supabase. So Supabase is just a software that allows us to actually sort those information and store it securely inside of our vector databases. So as we touched on our vector codes, let me explain you more in detail what it actually is and how it works. Here's our vector space of embeddings. And let's imagine that this is a category of fruits. Why? Because we have a dot with apple and a dot with orange here. This is like those codes, those information about them, for example. And so we can assume that this dot right here is going to be a dot of a strawberry or a melon or a banana, right? So these codes are located by a similarity, a similar category or similar topics next to each other, so we can actually search through them and easily find the ones we need. So let's take a look at this. We have a dot of a car here. So we can assume that this dot or this dot is going to be a boat or a plane or a train or whatever you want dot, right? This is like a transport category, transport location. And so if we take an example of what we're actually building today, it's going to be coach's RAG agent. And so we're going to upload all of coach's knowledge, all of clients' information about him. For example, we have a dot here that is talking to us about the company's info. It has an information inside of it about our client's company info. So we can assume that the dot next to here is going to be client's personal information, or the dot here is going to be company's marketing strategy from the last year. So they are also located next to each other because they have a similar topic, similar category, right? And so the important thing to touch on here is that once we build our AI agent, you're going to see that I'm also going to embed our query that we ask to our agent. And so we do that because To look up the information we need, our agent needs to compare our question to the information he has inside of his vector space of embeddings, the Supabase. And so once we get our question embedded as well and put inside of this vector space, our agent can sort through and see, does he have a dot that is speaking him about the company's info? And so once he finds it, oh, I have a dot that is answering the question about company's info. So he just grabs it and gives us our information, our answer that we need. Now let's go to our n8n and actually start building our AI automation, our RAG agent. So let's go. So guys, let's start here on adding our first trigger. That is going to be a manual trigger. So we can just actually trigger this workflow whenever they need. And then add a Google Drive node. And our action is going to be upload file, download file, right? So the first thing we need to make sure of here is that you have your credential connected. It can be sometimes a little bit tough to do to connect a Google OAuth, but I actually found a 4-minute video, and I'm going to give you a link down below in the description. A guy there answers like this question very easily and describes how to actually do that, how to set up this credential. So just make sure you have it set it up, and once you do, let's pick our file. And so my file is just a huge document with all of this information I've been talking about, a coach's knowledge, about client's information. And so my document name is B2B Sales Coach Knowledge Base. So let's add it, and now let's proceed to adding our next node that is going to be a Supabase node. It's going to be Supabase Vector Store. It's going to be add documents to the Vector Store. Now, also we need to make sure that we have a credential here. And so this is the thing we're going to do together. So let's go to our Supabase, and the first thing that we need to do is to create or sign in if you have an account. So once you do that, let's create a new project. So let's give our project name, it's going to be just something like that, project 3. And let's give our database a password, and also make sure that you have it saved somewhere because we're probably going to need it later. I think so. So just make sure that you have it saved. Now let's also set up a region, and it can be whatever region you want. I'm going to set up Oregon, and let's create a new project. All right, now as we have our project set it up, let's go to our project settings. Let's go to our data API, and let's copy this URL, because this URL is actually our host URL that we just need to insert inside of our n8n. Let's put it here. And now let's go back to Supabase, and let's go to our APIs key tab, and let's go to our legacy and non-service role API keys. Reveal and copy this code because it's like huge. Just click it like that. And this is our service role secret. Now also make sure that you have a name given to your credential, to your connection, because sometimes when you have a lot of them, you can just get lost. So just let's put it like that. And now as I have it set it up, let's click save, and it should be all right. Yeah, it's okay. And now we need to choose our table where actually all our vectors are going to be stored. But now, as you can see, we don't have any results. So let's go to our docs right here. And let's scroll down and go to our quick start for setting up your vector store. Now let's copy this huge batch of code, like full of it. Let's copy, and let's go back to our Supabase, and let's go to our SQL editor. Now paste it here, and don't change anything, but just make sure that you delete this and this extensions dot. Actually, because it's just going to give you an error that extension.vector1536 does not exist. I think it's because Supabase was like updated a few times for this time, but just make sure you delete it to avoid any errors. And now we should have success, no rows returned. Now let's go back to our table editor. And now we have our first table, that is a documents table. So as you got it by this code, we just created a new table. So if you want to create another table with a different name, you just can change this documents name everywhere you see, and you will create a new table with a different name. Let's go back to our n8n, refresh our list, and now we should have our documents table. Okay. Also make sure that you have your options set it up here, the match documents option, so we avoid any errors as well when we're going to be running this workflow. Now let's add our embedding model that is going to turn our chunks into vectors. And it's going to be just something like that. Model, just leave it like you have it. And now let's add our document. It is going to be default data loader. Pick a type of data as binary, because once we are going to download our file from our Google Drive, it's going to be in the binary type, not JSON as we have it here. So let's pick binary. And now we can just run this piece of automation because we are actually done with our first part. So let's execute it and just make sure it all works correctly and we don't have any errors here. All right, our workflow is executed successfully and we're all done with our first part. So right now, I guess our documents must be in our table. Yeah, you're right here. We have 69 items here and we have all our codes here, everything we need, and we have our actual text here. This is from my document, this one. And we have all our codes just right here. Now let's go back and create our actual part with AI agent because we're done with our first part. Let's create our AI agent. Let's click plus. And let's create a chat trigger. And let's plug in the, go up here. Let's plug in the AI agent actually. All right, let's give him the brain chat model. It's going to be OpenAI as well. Okay, GPT-4 1 minute, it's a pretty good model, so just stick with that if you have it. And now, as you remember, we also need to embed our query. So our agent can actually search through our Supabase and just give us back the right information. So let's add a tool as Supabase Vector Store. And let's make sure that we have the right credential here. Now let's give some short description, something like answer the questions about sales or client based off the information you retrieve from Supabase, something like that. Now let's also pick our table and it's going to be the same documents table here. And now we should be all right. And also let's plug in the embedding here. And as this node and this tool are using the same embeddings model, we can just cheat a little bit and just do it like that. We can just connect them to the same embeddings model. It's going to be totally all right. And now guys, I must tell that we're actually done with actual build of our AI automation. So now let's test it. I have a few questions ready, so let's do that. So the first question I'm going to ask him is going to be, what is my company's info? And the answer should like be really huge if it runs without the errors, because in my document, I have like a dummy client here, but I have a lot of information here, like the name, company's title, a lot of numbers, quota, sales cycle, whatever. And now let's go back and yeah, we have all the information here and he basically retrieved it back from our Supabase from our document and we have our information. Now let's ask him another question that is going to be what Sarah should do with retail max deal, because we also have it inside of our notes that our coach left about sessions with Sarah like before. All right, it run and we have a lot of our information here presented to this CFO using a tailored executive briefing focused on business outcomes, not product features, practicing her executive presentation before the call, etc. So we have an answer here and they're both retrieved from our document. I actually can applaud you guys because we're done with our AI agent. You're done with your RAG AI agent and it's actually can retrieve information, store information, and you also can play around with that. You can I didn't even touch on prompting here. Yeah, I didn't add anything at all here, but you can add a prompt, make it more flexible, or you can just change the triggers here. For example, when your new client adds to your client management system, right? It can be anything, guys. So yeah, I'm going to leave a link to this document in the description as well. So if you're just building this agent with me, you can just play around with this document and also have it for yourself because it's like fully AI generated. So guys, you can play around with that. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it and grabbed something valuable from here. So yeah, more value soon. Thank you so much and see you in the next videos.